Now recognize the ranking member from California, Mr. Swalwell, for second round questions.
Thank you, Chair. And Ms. Moore, pivoting to the international realm, how important is it that our international partners and allies work with us in setting AI security standards? And what role do you see for CISA and the Department of Homeland Security in supporting this effort?
What I see internationally is that the whole world depends quite a bit on the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. I see that with quantum safe, and I see that also with AI, and that this foundational way of thinking about things offers us a level of interoperability that makes it as global an issue as the way that we function as a global society. I think from the standpoint of the work that's happening today with CISA and DHS, I feel that globally they're very focused on leveraging those tools and the communications aspect of it. We see a lot of duplication around the world of people picking up these best practices and standards. And so I think we need to continue in that direction as much as possible for future. But it's very similar to many other areas that CISA and NIST and DHS work with today.
Great. Thank you. Mr. O'Neill, just as a part of an international company, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, one of CISA's strengths is the way that they go out and they constantly engage with stakeholders, both in the US and international circles. You know, cybersecurity is a team sport, and you know, cybersecurity practitioners within the US and internationally need to work together to be able to face the common threat. I think that's all.
Mr. Stamos, I want to vent a little bit. As a former prosecutor, perhaps there's no crime today that exists that has less of a deterrent in its punishment than cyber crimes. It's really frustrating to see whether it's an individual who's the victim, whether it's, as you said, any size company or our country. And it's frustrating because you can't punish these guys. It seems like they're just untouchable. And wanted you to maybe talk a little bit about, like, recognizing that if these attacks are coming from Russia or China or other Eastern European countries, many of them are not going to recognize a red notice. So we could work up a case and send a red notice to Moscow, like they're not going to go grab these guys. Do you see any deterrent that's out there? Is there a way to punish these guys? Does AI help us? And I know we have our own limitations on going offensive for private companies, but should we re-examine that? How do you impose a cost on these actors who are just savage in the way that they take down our individuals and companies?
Yeah, I mean, it is extremely frustrating to work with companies and to watch these guys not just demand money, but text family members of employees and do ACH transfers from small vendors just to intimidate them. And to laugh about it effectively. I mean, I think there's a bunch of things we could do. One, I do think like the FBI workups and the red notices do have a deterrent effect. Russians love to go visit their money in Cyprus, right? Especially in the winter. And so locking people, 22-year-olds that can never travel for the rest of their lives, I think actually is a positive thing. Like, enjoy Kazakhstan, right? and so I do think that's good. I would like to see, obviously, I don't see what happens on the classified side. It felt like after Colonial Pipeline that there was an offensive operations by Cyber Command against a lot of work to try to deter these guys and to disrupt their operations, and that has perhaps slackened off. And so I would like to see the United States, I don't think private companies should do it, but I do think the US offensive capability should be used against them. And then I think it's seriously time for Congress to consider outlawing ransomware payments.
And can we just briefly talk about that? Because you and I have talked about this for a long time, and I do think in a perfect world that stops it. But what do you do in the gap between the day you outlaw them and then the weeks after, where they're going to test to see if they're paid, and you could see just a crippling of critical infrastructure?
I mean, if you outlawed ransomware payments, there would be 6 months of carnage as they tried to punish the United States and to reverse it. I think a couple of things have to happen here. One, I think that this is something that Congress should do, not the administration unilaterally, because I think it needs to be a unified political stand of both political parties says we're not doing this anymore. We are not sending billions of dollars a year to our adversaries to hack us. And so it doesn't become a political football. If the admin did it by themselves, I think it'd be much easier to blackmail them into undoing it, right? Congress needs to speak as one voice here. Second, I think Congress would need to set up, delay the implementation and especially focus on nonprofits and local and state municipalities. You could be buying them insurance policies. There's been a lot of interesting work around state national guards, state guards of direct commissions. I know like CISOs my age, getting direct commissions so that if something bad happens to a state or locality, they have the legal authority to go work with them. I do think though it's the time to do that because the current status quo is not working.
Great. I yield back, but again, Chairman, I think this has been one of our most productive hearings this year, and thank you and the witnesses for making it so constructive.
Thank you. Gentlemen.